If you're anything like me, you may have been shocked to see Anthem videos showing up in your YouTube feed recently. In fact, you may have clicked on this video for that reason. Like, why is everyone talking about Anthem at the moment? And that is because EA, or BioWare more specifically, put out an update saying that the service for Anthem will be permanently sunset. Oh, the word sunset striking fear into the heart of every Destiny player. On January 12th, 2026. And so you will no longer be able to play Anthem. It's an online game. There's not going to be an offline mode. It will actually be dead this time. They also made a note to say that Anthem will be removed from the EA playlist on August 15th, 2025. They didn't really explain what this meant. And my interpretation of this is like, when you go to play Anthem, you have to go through EA Play. Even though it's on Game Pass right now, but it says with EA Play. So it pushes you back through EA Play. So I think this is saying, if you want to play it, download it off EA Play now before August 15th this year, and you can play up until January 2026, where it'll be gone forever. Now, I was shocked to see Anthem videos pop up in my feed and think, what's that about? I was kind of even more shocked to see such positive reception to Anthem. A lot of comments saying, I wish they stuck at it for longer. It had potential. It could have actually come back. Like, it wasn't so terrible that it couldn't have recovered from it. And definitely at the time of release, and a lot of reviews around that time, was of the opinion that it was so broken and so bad it couldn't recover. So I thought, you know what? Let's take off the nostalgia goggles and actually just play the game. And I played about 12 hours of Anthem in 2025. And what stunned me is Anthem had been hiding on my hard drive since 2019. I never open up EA Play. I did this on stream and I had the play button. I was like, wait, what? This has been installed on my PC all these years. And every time I do like add or remove program, like I've got a lot of Adobe products for editing, Anthem was hiding in there, hoping like, please don't see me, don't uninstall me. So anyway, we played on stream for 2 days, essentially, to see if people's comments about it had potential. Was that like this nostalgia goggle? Were they forgetting how bad things were? Or was there actual potential with Anthem? Let's talk about it. If you boot up Anthem in 2025, the first couple hours is really going to make you question whether we were too harsh on Anthem, because there is some good stuff here. And I think this is mostly where the nostalgia goggles lie. The first thing is the flying. In fact, all the reviews at the time, and even anyone who played Anthem at the time, pretty much unanimously said that flying felt good. And goddamn, it does feel good. As soon as you jump back in, you're like, oh, I wish this game lived, because this flying is very satisfying. You have the the overheat meter, and I only had like one person in my chat was like, I don't like the overheat meter, and I was like, I love the overheat meter. Makes you think about how you're flying through the environment, how you might dip into a waterfall, or personally, my favorite aspect is flying low to like a lake or a river and actually cooling off your jets as you fly through. They really did nail the feeling of flying like Iron Man in this game. And it felt good on day one, and goddamn, it feels good if you jump back in 2025. That first step of Fort Tarsus into that open world truly does feel great. And I was like, oh my God, we judged Anthem wrong. This should have lived. Why did we not persist with Anthem and be more positive? The other thing I think you'll find out in the first couple hours of gameplay is, goddamn, the abilities also feel really good too. Specifically your like ultimates or your supers, like when you cast them down onto your enemies and you get like a combo chain or just a big explosion, visually is good. The power fantasy is also there. I played Storm, whatever that javelin's called. I didn't actually play it previously on day one. I think I played I was a Titan main. I played the Hulk dude, and I was like, oh my God, this feels really good. This feels really fun. That is really satisfying hearing that combo. And the combat combos is when you combine different elements in different ways, and you get like cha-ching when you hit something, and everything explodes and you do more damage. That also feels great. The facial animations and like the cuts, there's like multiple different styles of cutscenes. There's more like pre-rendered cutscenes and there's more like in-game cutscenes. In my memory, I remember people criticizing them, or I thought people were criticizing them, especially like the facial animations. I think they look actually really goddamn good. I think they did an actually incredibly good job, especially for the genre of a loot and shooter, because I think there's a lot worse out there when it comes to like in-game storytelling with cutscenes. I was just thankful there was not an ink blot cutscene to deliver some huge narrative. Now, obviously, there's lots of crossovers with Destiny. Like they do very similar, like Grimoire card story delivery as well. But just like the facial animations was something that actually really shocked me, because my memory of that was quite different, and I thought there was a lot of criticism around that. But I was actually like, oh, this is good, and a lot of these characters are actually quite likable. I mean, I think when it comes to story, there's very hit and miss. Some people find things cringy. Oh, his dialogue's cringy. Oh, that's cringy. This is cringy. A lot of the time I was like, I like this character. This seems like a believable person. This seems like a real person. Now, there's lots of other issues I have with the campaign, and we'll get there. But I think if you play the game in 2025, I think you'll probably be shocked with the discrepancy maybe in your memory of some of the criticism of this game and how good some of the like voice acting and facial animations actually are in the game during the cutscenes. The next thing, I think, when I had the most fun in the game, and it takes a little while to get there, is the strongholds, which are just like missions, like a Destiny strike mission, really. It's not a dungeon or a raid or anything, but it is, the environment is interesting. You have some flying, collecting things to do. I really felt like I had to start thinking about my like abilities. I had to cycle through and like prioritizing different targets, and it was obviously a little bit more challenging. I actually couldn't do it by myself. Definitely some like balancing issues. Thankfully, I had kind of convinced a lot of people in my live stream to download Anthem and give it one final hurrah, and so I actually could get a team together and give the strongholds a bit of a shot. And I was pleasantly surprised with how much I actually enjoyed the stronghold. I didn't get to endgame, and I only actually made it through like 12 hours of playing Anthem, and I did eventually reach a wall. And I think overall what will happen is you'll play the game and you'll think, man, we were too harsh at Anthem. This really does have potential. And then you'll keep playing, and then you go, oh, this is why we gave up on it. Okay. One other positive I want to talk about, I think the javelins are just so well designed. The javelins really look cool. The paint design and the paint options, the customization options from the paint point of view was really good. From memory, the armor customization was very lacking, if not missing, I think, on launch. You did have a like pre-order that changed the physical shape of your javelin, but you don't get like loot drops of that happening. And I think later on they did add some stuff that you could purchase to change the armor shape going through. But in general, love the javelin design. I think they all look great and unique. And the ones that I do remember playing, the ones that I played now, like they have very interesting ultimates and you know, enjoyed it very much. And so I think that is where a lot of the nostalgia goggles come from. Cool flying, over the top like abilities that just feel good to use. Strongholds I enjoyed. I think that would be fun to grind. And then just like javelins having a great feel to them, the customization with the paint jobs and stuff. Everyone who joined like my stream or like joined me playing the game like looked different. They were either like role playing Iron Man or they were bright pink, you know, a giant bright pink Hulk. Unfortunately though, I do think that's where some of the nostalgia ends. But we can half answer the question, do I think Anthem has the potential? Do I think Anthem could have been a long-lasting live service loot and shooter? Based on those things, I think so, yes. I think there was just enough there. And I do think probably some of the reviews were a little bit harsh back in the day, saying that they would have to completely redesign everything and there was nothing there that could be salvaged. Just on the flying, some of the combat feel and the design of the javelins, and then also just playing around in that world, I think there was enough there to actually build upon, and they could, if they doubled down on endgame and strongholds and that combat feel, they could have nabbed a big enough audience to keep development going. But of course, that's not the whole story. So let's talk about why I got to about 12 hours of playing. I was like, I've had enough. I actually don't want to play anymore. All right, so why did I kind of quit playing Anthem after 12 hours in 2025? It was primarily to do with the pacing of the campaign. while there were some good moments, like I said, some good cutscenes and facial animation and voice acting, my God, the campaign is an absolute slog because of what it asks you to do. You pivot between going to Fort Tarsus, the hub area, where you walk in first person to some NPC. They deliver sometimes okay and sometimes bad exposition, and then you usually get like some sort of load screens. Oh, you get so many load screens. You load screen into this, you load screen into that, you load screen into looking into your gear, you load screen back into going to the open world, and then the main part of the campaign is just like often just going out into the open world, collecting the Whoosy Watsits, and then putting them on the Watsy thingies, and then going back to Fort Tarsus, and then talking to NPC. It is painful. Whilst the story has a beginning, middle, and end, well, actually, I didn't get to the end part, but I remember doing it back when Anthem finished. It is just so painful to go to. And I think if you go back and read Jason Schreier's like expose on Anthem's development, you really start to understand like why this game didn't have any direction. And I believe it wasn't even really like a loot and shooter until really end of the cycle, the development cycle. And so you see some of these like story-driven RPG elements that just don't really land. And I'm like, I want to get to the loot and shooting part, and I'm just talking to these NPCs and then watching load screens. And there is so much downtime in playing Anthem where you are actually not playing Anthem, and then you get this little bit of, oh cool, I'm flying again, I like flying's fun, and then you absolutely nuke about 3 enemies, like the enemy density is completely off for the campaign, and then you come back, watch a load screen, talk to NPCs again. It is painful, and I got to a point in the campaign where I just don't want to do this anymore. I want to just go do strongholds. I want to grind strongholds. And part of me was like, I see why, and although Destiny's always criticized for this, I see why Destiny makes strike missions and they reuse them as the campaign. Because goddamn, the alternative is something like Anthem, where the open world felt, although pretty, felt completely empty and felt absolutely pointless, just flying from point A to point B to point C, collecting things, then going back for more dialogue. Whereas at least I think the strongholds were like visually interesting and also challenging and actually fun to go through. And I was like, God damn, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm kind of agreeing with Destiny's formula, which was you make strike missions and then you reuse them as campaign missions because they're more interesting. That was like one of the main things, is the campaign is a slog. I got through 12 hours of it, and they even reduced how much time it takes to get through it. If you remember, back in the OG days, there was this tomb mission where you got to these tombs and you just had like a checklist of stuff to do out in the open world before you could progress. And then when you got through that room, it was just like, it was a little room. It was a tomb, and that was it. Huge amount of complaints about it back in the day, which was just like busy work grinding for the sake of it and didn't really contribute to the story. Anyway, they've actually patched that. Now when you get to that tomb mission, it's actually all pre-done for you. And you just go straight in. But even then, the campaign still feels like an absolute slog. There are some moments that are enjoyable, but the missions themselves are repetitive and boring. Now, I actually think a poor campaign is pretty forgivable, especially in the loot and shoot genre. Destiny Exhibit A. And you can get away and you can make improvements from that. So I don't think that the campaign being poor is a nail in the coffin for Anthem back in the day. That being said, the expectation was insanely high because it was BioWare, and that's kind of what they're known for. And then you had these very, the dialogue options, make no difference whatsoever. Personally, I didn't expect that to be a thing. I didn't expect it to be that level of storytelling in a loot and shooter. And I think it's forgivable. And I actually think they had a foundation with their animation captures and their voice acting and the way they were delivering cutscenes, that they probably could have told a really good story, and they could tell subsequent good stories in future updates, right? Like there was something there that they could have done well with. What I don't think they did very well with, and what probably was the nail in the coffin for me, was the loot. My God, for a loot and shooter, it was incredibly undersatisfying. And like there was never a time I picked something up and wanted to check it, even though you couldn't check it anyway. Like you pick up loot and you have to wait to the end screen, like the mission end screen, to actually look at it to see what you got. But you really were just unlocking new skills to use for your javelin, and the weapons were just in their archetypes, right? Like a sniper rifle with shotgun. In endgame, you start getting some perks on the weapons, which you might be excited to look at. But for at least the first, 12 to 15 hours of just doing the campaign, there's almost no excitement looking at your loot. And I really don't feel like they nailed that core gameplay loop of like, I'm going to shoot something and it's satisfying to shoot something, and then I'm going to get some cool loot and then look at it and then equip it to make some builds. I don't think the build complexity and crafting is there too. The combat system involved combos and using different elements to cause some sort of giant explosion or different effect on screen. And when you play solo and don't have any friends, it can be really limiting because you get a new ability, but it doesn't combo with your other ability, and then you're trying to mix and match these abilities. And some things look really cool, but you just don't have an ability that combos with it yet, so you can't do it. Or you're not playing with a team, so you want to prime stuff and they should trigger it, but yet you don't have that going. I'm in two minds with the combo system. I like it, but I don't think it should be the only thing. And that's kind of where I got to with like the combat, is like, I do like this combo system and like priming something and then triggering it and watching a big explosion. It was satisfying. But that shouldn't be the only thing I'm looking forward to. There needs to be something in the loot itself. I don't know if they ever change it, but you don't get armor dropping from the loot. I think you always have to pay for that. So your visual appearance, you can't get loot dropping for. All the weapons kind of felt the same. And I was just looking out for cool new abilities each time. And I think that's a big, big issue. And I think that would have been the major issue they would have to address if Anthem was going to survive back then. I think if they doubled down on the strongholds and they fundamentally had a really good look at their loot system and how they could make that more interesting, it could have survived. It may have survived because there was just enough potential between the way the javelins felt and looked and how they flew and how fun it was to play through strongholds. But the big issue for me would have been the loot. And if they could have put some effort into solving that problem and make it really rewarding to pick up loot, really rewarding to look at loot, and gave some build complexity and some combat complexity to the game, that would have made a huge difference. I think I definitely felt like it was just find the best combo and then spam the best combo abilities over and over again. And that gets pretty repetitive pretty quickly. And I don't think the enemies had the complexity to them either. So there was just lacking depth in how the enemies acted and what you could build craft with the javelin. Finally, the thing that really hurt Anthem's launch was the performance and bugs with it. I did experience a bug in the game where I had to repeat the exact mission, got the same dialogue, but I actually progressed the campaign. I went into this mission, I'm like, oh, I've played this before. I didn't update. I quit, watched the load screen, realized there was no one else to talk to, went back in the mission again, just did the exact same mission, and then the quest actually progressed. There's still bugs that exist in the game like that. Back in the day, Anthem bricked one of my hard drives that it was installed on because it crashed so often and actually caused an issue with my hard drive, and I had to replace it. I didn't have that issue happen this time, but obviously that was an issue on launch. So I think obviously performance and bugs, I mean, maybe that's where all the resources went on launch, and maybe that was a huge factor for why Anthem couldn't make any progress to actually maintaining their player base and dealing with other big issues like core issues like the loot and having more end game activities, because I had to deal with all the performance and bug issues early on. So after recently playing Anthem, do I think it was salvageable? Do I think it actually had potential? And if they stuck with it, could it have improved? Yes, I do. I think there was just enough there between the feel of a javelin, the look of a javelin, the flying, the feel of abilities. They got some of that right. One of the big things I don't think they got right was the loot. And if they could have invested resources into making the loot for really good, and if they invested resources into just doing more of the strongholds and endgame activities, I think they could have captured an audience. We had this really interesting question on stream, like, do you think Anthem would succeed today? Like, if Anthem launched tomorrow with all the same issues, do you think it would succeed? And I guess the question was asking, if Destiny 2 Forsaken hadn't been just released the year before, which was highly regarded as like Destiny's best DLC, if Division 2 didn't release that year, and if Warframe didn't exist, would there have been a space for Anthem to actually grow and develop? And it's interesting to go back and look at Jason Schreier's article, because it was apparently taboo to talk about Destiny amongst the leadership at BioWare. They didn't want to acknowledge Destiny and these other loot and shooters, which had already learned all these valuable lessons of how to make a live service loot and shooter, and they wanted to ignore it. But instead, kind of getting off topic here, if it released today without that level of competition, would it have done better and would have secured at least enough of audience to improve some of the issues? Oh, maybe. I will say that I've seen worse loot and shooters persist and surprisingly do okay in the current market. I'm not going to name names, but I think there's some stinkers out there that are actually doing okay because some of those other loot and shooter franchises are not at their peak, except for Warframe. There you go. What are your most fond memories of Anthem, and do you think it had potential and they should have persisted, and we maybe would still be playing Anthem over how many years later, since 2019? All right, a like and a comment, we greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.